Now, one of the topics that has come up over the years many times, and I always try to explain what my philosophy is very quickly and simply, but let me just expound on that just a little bit. We all start out, when you design a plane, in theory anyway, you start out that the ratio of flap travel, let's use a Nobler as an example, that the control ratio, you set up the control system so that as the flap moves 1 degree, the elevator moves 1 degree. And that's called basically a one-to-one system. Also, if you go way back in time, you'll remember ships like the Ares that basically were designed around a 3-to-2 hookup. In other words, the elevators would move 3 degrees every time the flaps moved 2 degrees. And that seemed to work. The relationship always was, if you can avoid walking into the camera, was that this worked well on a relatively heavy ship. This worked well on a really light ship. Now, in the past, we've also made pattern masters, for instance, that had 4 to 5 ratios and various things in between. But our objective always is to start off trimming a plane, at least in the first, getting friendly and used to the plane, with having a 1-to-1 ratio. But what we always try to do, and in the case of Miss Ashley, we have never even tried these other ratios. We have 3 choices. And what we're going to do right now, we're going to take the plane apart, because that's what's nice about a take-apart plane, and just experiment a bit. We know that 1-to-1 seems to work pretty well. We're going to try, the next time we get a fly-in session, is just moving the elevators just a little bit more than the flaps, and we have that bushing already installed in the elevator horn. We just need to move the push rod up. Relatively simple job. But the point is, if you want to experiment like this is real easy when you have a take-apart plane. Real easy when you don't walk into the camera. You can tell I'm having a hangover here from this gnat strip. Anyway, this whole section comes off, and we can get in at the control system. Now, it also, on the Spitfires, which were not take-apart planes, back here, Joe had designed in what amounted to be a hatch that you could get in, unsolder the link, and move it down to the next hole. And on Joe's yellow Spitfire, he's done a lot of experimenting with different ratios. We're going to be doing even more experimenting, because he's flying that yellow Spitfire is very soon going to have a Sato in it. And so a lot of times you have a trim choice here that as you change the CG in the plane, and I want to explain what I'm trying to accomplish here. What I'm looking for here is, Miss Ashley right from the get-go had a real nice corner. I'm not looking for more corner. But a lot of times, by backing down on the flap a little bit, which is what we'll be doing, we'll be moving the elevators not quite 3-to-2, but maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 4-to-5. A little bit less flap travel tends to slow it down less in a corner. Now, in the case of putting a 4-stroke in the plane, which is what Joe has done, you can turn a much bigger propeller. And so what the bigger propeller allows you to do is go in the other direction, where you can move the flaps more than the elevators. And there's advantages and disadvantages to both. But the ultimate thing is to be able to adjust it, to fine-tune it, to suit that exact plane, and of course your exact fly-in needs. Oh, another choice you have, and this is something we've done in the past with the yellow Cardinal specifically, is we went to the field and we wanted to try different ratios, but we didn't have an adjustable control system. Still, there's another way to do it. You can take a little piece of balsa wood, and in this case you could use maybe 1/8 by 1/4, and just scotch tape it to the back of the flap, so in essence the flaps are bigger. And what that would allow you to do is see what the result would be if you were to speed up the flap travel. In other words, more flap travel relative to the elevator. Then, if you didn't like this, you can just take the tape off and say, gee, that didn't help at all. You could do the same thing back here and make the elevators a little more effective. Again, if the elevators are shaped, and just to make an example up, they usually end at about 1/8 of an inch. You can just take a piece of 1/8 inch balsa, a 1/4 inch, and put some scotch tape on it. Now, it's a good idea if you do this, be aware that you can pull the paint up off the plane too. So you want to take that tape and stick it to something else so that it doesn't pull the paint up, and use it the second time you push it down. The same way you don't want to pull the tape up when you're doing a paint job. But this would give you another way of trying different control ratios if you didn't have a hatch, if you didn't have an adjustable horn. But the feeling that I always have is I try to do these kind of tests, and we've done this with the Cardinals, and we're going to do it with Miss Ashley. If you have the adjustable controls, and in our case with Miss Ashley, we can just pull the wires out of the flaps, make another set of flaps smaller, another set bigger, which we did on the original Miss Ashley. We made carbon fiber flaps. Well, it's always the best to have the most adjustability built into the plane. And it's always not in your favor to have things that once you build the plane, you can't get at them. It's always, just think of the most obvious, the motor and the tank. If you built the motor and the tank into the plane and you could never get it out, well, wow, that would be a real problem. The reason we want to do this so aggressively is because we only have really about 3 weeks left before we get our concrete field back. When we get our concrete field back, or I should say paved field, we want to be flying the B-25 from that point in the year until we actually leave for England. So we're trying to segment up what's left of the year into distinct, as that bird just flies by, into some distinct test things that we'd like to use the rest of the year to test. I thought from looking over the Nats videos that Miss Ashley just performed as well as I could have ever expected an experimental plane, but there's still more to try, and the time was limited before the Nats. We didn't get to try the elevator ratios, so that's one of the things. If we get a fly-in day in the next 3 weeks that we can dedicate to trying that, we're going to set the plane up ahead of time so we can just run out to the field and try it. Typically when we get back from the Nats, we're really busy for a couple of weeks. So the time may be limited, but that's one of the things I wanted to try. Again, if I found that more elevated travel was a way to go, what I could do in essence is just make up bigger elevators. Tape that little piece on if I thought that would help. But by going back and forth, you always will find something that you didn't have the other way. It'll always change. Now if it changes for the worse, pretend that, let's make a scenario up. We try a little more elevated travel, the plane gets less flyable. Well, what does that tell you? We'll go in the other direction and move the flaps more. But by fine-tuning it, I don't like having a slider in the back. I'm always afraid that's going to get loose right on walk or fly-off day or top 20 day or whatever. But I'd rather have the holes and have a way of permanently putting it in position so it never changes. And that's we've built that right into this plane, and pretty much all of the take-apart planes have that choice that we can just take the back piece off and get in there at the pool. We actually could do the same thing with the Typhoon also. So that's one of the choices that we have. One of the things you buy by having a take-apart plane or a hatch in the back. Now, what we're all building up here to is, because we're going to be test flying the B-25, we've started out with the ratios being 1-to-1. That's always the point I think it's best to start at. But there's a reality check here. The B-25 is, if not too heavy, it's on the heavy side. So I'm guessing right away that if we do have the time this year to try all the choices, we may even wind up with more flap travel, which typically happens on 4-stroke installations. You can use more flap travel because of the larger prop diameters. We may wind up with less elevated travel and flap travel because the wing is small relative to the overall weight. But again, because it's a take-apart plane, we can get in there and adjust the ratios. So the point that I'm trying to make is, if you've built a Nobler and you can't get in and change anything without cutting the plane, you're probably just going to fly it out for its entire life and never make any fine-tuning adjustments. If you allow yourself the choice of removing the flaps with bigger flaps or changing the ratios, you'll find, just by experiment, you'll find something that's probably just a little better than 1-to-1. The trouble is, it takes flight after flight after flight, evaluate, videotape. We didn't have the time to do that before the Nats, but we're going to have the time to do it now. And we hope we're going to put all that data into the database so that when it comes time to fly the B-25, and we're going to start at 1-to-1, if we see flight characteristics that we think we've trimmed out in other planes. And just to make an example, the yellow Cardinal was very light, the original yellow Cardinal. And when I made the flaps bigger, the corner totally disappeared. When I took a razor and cut a 1/4 inch off the flaps, the plane came to life like like a dynamite stick. So I had the original plane because it was only 54 ounces, was very light, didn't need the flap travel, didn't need the width, the size of the flaps. This plane, I think, may even need more flap than we have. Again, we're trying to generate as much lift as we can. All this always assumes that the hinge lines are always taped, always. We never would fly the plane without the hinge lines taped. Now, the other part of this, I always build slop into the controls. Now, there are certainly people with counterpoints. They prefer ball links or controls that are very tight. A couple of things that I've thought of. I go over and check a lot of planes. Even when people aren't looking, I'll just grab the flap, move the elevator, and I see virtually every plane I've ever checked has some slop. What we're talking about is how much. Now, the amount of slop I prefer is in the control horn. If I have an 1/8 inch hole and a 3/32 wire, that's easy to deal with because I can build a plane, put a little piece of fuel tank tubing in here, that lines up everything at neutral, take the fuel tank tubing out, and that push rod will be completely centered in that hole with the same amount of slop on both sides. Now, years ago, Bob Gildini wrote about the benefits of slop, and I think he was the one that probably was the one that brought this to everybody's attention, that old planes always seem to fly better than new planes. And that was one of the reasons. I think one of the reasons, and you can pick your reason. If you think there's another reason, this is not like some set in stone thing, but this is my reasoning. When a plane sits out in the sun, and you can measure this with a laser, by the way, take a plane, put it out in the sun, in the brightest sun, for an hour, and go measure the wing, and you'll see the wing, at the end of an hour, the wing is starting to droop down. I've measured even 4 numbers on the laser that it droops down from the sun beating on one side, which expands that side and pushes the wing down. I've seen people leave the plane, Billy Suarez, for instance, leave the plane upside down so that it would warp the other way. Well, we all know the body has to be doing the same thing. What I think happens with the slop is it allows any misalignment that you might have, and you might have a little misalignment in the motor, you might have a little misalignment here, it could be that everything's perfect, but the heat of the day has bowed this up to some degree. Well, we don't really know, but I know for a fact that if you put a little bit of slop in the controls, typically you can put it on either side as long as it's on the push rod that connects these two together. If you put that slop in there, the plane always seems to do 2 things. It flies level flight on rails, it'll come out of a corner. Now, when you see planes at the Nats, you'll see, Les Demet has a word for it, he calls it ferreting. They come out of a corner and go, well, a lot of times you're just trying to set all your neutrals back, where if you come around and everything's got a little slop in it, everything just goes right back into position. Again, it's a debatable point. We're not looking to make the case that we have some knowledge that there's no counterpoint. There may be a counterpoint. And the counterpoint might be that super expert flyers can deal with a lot less slop, but lower skill level people, or people that fly under different conditions, this will benefit them. The best thing of all, what's the best thing of all, is if this doesn't work and you say, oh gee, I tried Wendy's method, it doesn't work, you take the push rod off, the push rod end would be like this, put that little piece of brass fuel tubing on, solder on your washer, and then you have no slop. Well, the best of all worlds is if you can try it both ways and decide for yourself. And this little method with the fuel tank tubing, which is on all the videos for the last 10 years, this seems to give you a choice that you don't otherwise have. It's an excellent choice. So if you combine all of the choices that I've just gone over, if you can vary your control ratio with different adjustments in the horn setup, either by taking apart or with a hatch, you can remove your flaps or just add little pieces to the end, or in the worst of all worlds, if you see making them bigger went in the wrong direction, try cutting an 1/8 inch off the flaps. If you've built a real heavy plane, the heavier the plane may be, the more it's going to need the flap hinge lines taped, even though I know Billy Woolridge, and he's probably got the lightest of the modern stunners. His are always taped. Consider moving the flaps just a little bit more as one way of getting a little more lift. And moving the flaps a little more is going to make for more drag, so consider a bigger prop diameter. Last little way of fine-tuning a plane, always allow yourself the option of having some slop in the controls. Now, we're living in a really wonderful age of model aviation. So many parts are available, so many good things. I think most people, maybe there's a few exceptions, wind up using, like I do, a traditional arrow shaft with no adjustment, basically. That would be the standard, let's call it the standard by which we're trying to make things happen. What I've done in the past, and we're probably going to have to do it to the B-25, is if we want to change that, what I have to do is pretty much make another push rod with a slip joint here, and there's a lot of ways to do this too. My first choice would be to do it this way, some copper wire and solder it, and then I could fine-tune the length. If I see my handle needs the cable way down on one side or the other, what it means is I should adjust the push rod beyond one or two little slots on the handle. This would tend to make the plane turn equally. Well, there's other ways of people have come up with doing it, and Old Drindeck has a lot of good ways with the ball links and adjustable, the Ultra Hobby push rods. There's 1,000 different ways, and this is the way I've always chosen to do it. There's also another way. The Bill Biles has it. It goes on the push rod. We have one of the, I don't know who has it. Somebody borrowed it and never gave it back, but we had a Bill Biles adjuster. Now this would be my final way of doing this, and this would be the ultimate way. I would have this as close to the CG as possible. This is the little threaded adjuster. But also, when I'm all done and I've at the field got the exact length dialed in, the exact length I want, I then take a piece of aluminum. You could go buy a piece of channel iron aluminum at Home Depot, something like that. And I drill 2 really accurate holes in it, so that those holes, that push rod would just drop into those holes, and it would have the adjuster on it, or whatever. Then I would make another push rod without an adjuster, because once it's adjusted, you're done. It's not like adjustable lead-outs. You're not going to change this every time you fly, but this would be a tool to use to set up your final push rod length, which would be, you could mark it, and then build yourself a push rod with the little slop in the ends, and then fill it with carbon fiber, the way we've done 1,000,000 times on video. And that gauge would, now you'd eliminate this part, and you could use it again in the next plane, assuming you're building a plane with the same tail moment arm. If you weren't, you could just take it out. The other thing I would suggest, if you do one of these, the plugs, they JB weld in, and I've heard that it's real reliable. They JB weld into the inside of an arrow shaft. There's a couple of problems that I see that could possibly happen. The inside of the arrow shaft is a molded part, so you want to scuff that up as well as you can with 80 grit paper, roughen it up, get the JB weld in there, hit it with a little bit of a heat gun, maybe even wrap this with some carbon fiber, and when it's all dry, I would drill a 64th hole right through the center of it. If we were looking at it this way, drill a hole right through the center and put a press pin or a cotter pin in it, and that would ensure that there's no way that would ever come out. There's no way you would ever have a problem. JB Weld is probably real reliable. Bill Biles reports that it's never failed on him. The problem with things like this is highly skilled modelers, and Bill Biles is probably a highly skilled modeler, he would already know to etch the inside of this, clean it up, make sure, and somebody at a lower skill level would just take some 5-minute glue and shove it in there. Well, we're trying to make it that there's no chance whatsoever that these parts will fail in service. So if you look at having all of these choices in your control system, well, we're going to go get Miss Ashley off the rack here, and we'll have about a 3-week time that we can try different ratios and see if we don't make any improvement at all. The best of all worlds is if you find nothing that makes it any better, you put it all back right where it was. You've not gained or lost anything. It's the best of all worlds. But if you don't know about these, if you're not aware of these possibilities, let's pretend you had a plane. Let's pretend you had a Cardinal, and for the whole life of the plane, you've lived with something that isn't right, or that it didn't turn equally, or it didn't turn tight enough, or it turned too tight. Any one of it, and you would always be just a 5-minute little fix away from having it perfect. It'd be a shame. And we've put a lot of this literature into our catalogs over the years, This is the ones we've had in the shop and the ones I've done for other people. They've worked out very well. Bill's phone number, Bill's email, I think you can pull it right off of there. Phone number is 909-318-2580. The assembly weighs 4 grams. That's not an issue at all. If you build a plane that won't carry 4 extra grams, I'm not sure you're building the right plane. Anyway, just some thoughts on getting your control system fine-tuned up. No matter what plane you're building, no matter what kind of motor you have, if you know how to do it, you'll always be able to get more performance out of it. Now with the gnats behind us, the first thing we need to do here is get rid of the pavement gear. We'll probably not be flying on pavement again until we get to our field in Palisade Park. And in the meantime, when we do get to that field, we're going to be flying the B-25. So the rest of this year we'll probably fly out with Miss Ashley on grass. We've many times put on a video what the benefits and the pros and cons of having 2 sets of landing gear are. No sense reiterating that, but it served us well having those gear. And I don't think we bounced a single landing at the gnats, and or a single takeoff that was really terrible. So I think they did serve us well. You look down with one pavement gear on, we get a good alignment. You can see how much further forward the grass gear go than the pavement gear. Now even the best, let's assume you build the best plane on the planet, the best plane you're capable of, and you never get it fine-tuned. Well, what good is that? That isn't doing much good either. Now I just want to show, let's see if we can back the camera up just a little bit. This is an important thing. A lot of people never get to see this, or they don't realize how significant it is. I'm going to hold the flaps steady. See, the flaps aren't moving? And that's how much slop at that control ratio seems to work well for us. Get up to use what amounts to be about a 4-to-5 ratio here. I think we're going to put this bird on another control ratio. Anyway, we will get to see if a little bit more elevator puts this in a little friendlier position. If it doesn't, we know we can always go right back. And the other choice we have is we can take a little piece of copper tubing to the field and try running it without slop and with slop and make a decision on our own. Just assuming we're in the next couple of days we're going to get a flight day. The day we can run out and check this. Having all these little possibilities, we can do the rest of it right at the field. We can put the slop back in and out, move the control ratio because it's just loosening and tightening a wheel collar. But this will give us one little bit more information of things we'll know in the future, and hopefully some information we'll be able to use when we trim the B-25. Pretty much everything we're doing is geared toward just getting that B-25 in the air in the next 2 or 3 weeks. In today's mail, Warren Walker sent us another set of photos now that his plane's been flown. A Strega built from plans, a Super Tiger 60. Now he's already got flights on this and very happy with the way it's flying so far. Some nice creative lettering with combining the 7 and the Strega in one logo. I like that. But Tyser will like that. Looks like he has a Tom Lay muffler on it. He's got some neat little electrosets on here on the bottom of it. Looks like the bottom of the outer wing. It says, "Thanks to my good friend Wendy Artnowski for all your help." That's very nice. He's also got something on the other wing on the top that I think is cool as can be. And it says, "Fly it like you have no time or money invested." Bob H. I'm assuming that's Bob Hoover. Getting some of the nice electroset work Warren has done on the plane. I like the rudder too. The American flag rudder is real nice. In fact, there's a shot here. Got one more shot here. And of course our good friend Gorham's. He says this is a picture after the first flight. And he was really happy with the way it worked out. He also sent a picture. Now Warren, I gotta preface this story. Warren always sends me, he home grows his own pickles. He sent me, I thought this was a marijuana plant. What do I know? It's a pickle plant. Anyway, we're expecting our next shipment of pickles soon. Karen's already getting her appetite ready. Couple of pictures Percy Atfield gave me at the Nats. Some nice pictures here. I think these are cool. These are of Brodak, of course, when we lined up all the scale planes. There's one here I really like. Now, Percy's caption I will not get into, but I'll show you the next one. I won't even read Percy's caption. You figure out what it is. Anyway, thanks to everybody. Hey, we're just waiting for some weather to get out to the flying field here, and it doesn't look like it's coming today or tomorrow. Looks like we got a reasonably nice overcast day here. We're going to try our new control ratio setup, see if we like it better. But the trick here is you don't want to make the decision on the first day. You want to give it a couple of days. So we'll give this a couple of days. It looks like a bunch of people are already here. Anyway, after a couple of days, we'll make a decision. Do we want to stay with this or go on and try some other ratios? At least we'll find out if we're going in the right direction or not today. He's here every day. Watch this. Check it out. What is it? He catches woodchucks in his backyard. We don't even know who this guy is. He comes in a Lincoln.
Not to let him go by the road, but he lets him go by the road anyway.
Why doesn't he go back in the woods and let him go?
Because the poor guy's going to run right into the street and
and get whacked. Well, he doesn't look like the brightest bulb on the tree either.
I don't know you catch a woodchuck.
No, they have a garden. My neighbor traps them, but he takes them, 20 miles away. They eat all your vegetables. Why doesn't he put them right out in the middle of the road? That's pretty smart. Oh, what's the stick for? Oh, look at this. This guy's a rocket scientist.
You don't release them, right? You beat the shit out of him with the stick.
Look at this. Look at this. Look what we have to deal with.
They look like a squirrel. They look like a squirrel to me. Okay.
All right. Raindrops here, so it doesn't look like we're going to get anything done today. At least it's starting to look like a raindrop day. Oh, man. Well, we live to fight another day here. Oh, it looks like it's going to rain. Brian's got his tester plane. Boy, this thing, I remember when this went in. This is one of the repairs.
And I broke it twice since.
Well, keep up the good work. Flip it. This is a motor you got from England?
Yeah, the Marco 61.
Okay, we haven't seen this. Oh, this is the...
Yeah.
Get some of the dirt off of there. How big's the Venturi on that?
It's like 312 now. I opened it up, but it was still around 300.
Okay.
And Tommy Hampshire did his little heat ring deal on there. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Because it wasn't running. It would sit there and idle and die out, inverted and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And then the only plug it would run on was a Fox plug.
Yeah.
So Tommy took and did the head, mailed it back to me. Now it runs on, pretty much anything I put in there. So we got a Thunderbolt in there.
Yeah. What pitch is this? A 6-pitch?
It's a 6-pitch right now, but it's a 12. And
how much time you got on the motor? Enough that you can start leaning on it?
Well, yeah. I ran it on two or three times. 2 days. I don't know how many.
Ooh, you got a lot of goop in that filter. Wow, I can see that without my glasses. Man alive, Brian. I thought you were a better craftsman. Well, put it up. Let's see. I saw it flying before, but I didn't get a...
Planes are tanks, but...
How much does this plane weigh? 80 ounces or something?
Well,
it's heavy, I know that. But even though it's a rent-a-plane...
Fiberglass from here to here?
Yeah, I know.
But
okay, you want to try another flight?
yeah, it's just
Yeah, put it up, even if it's raining a little bit. What if, you know, don't take the good planes out of the car, that's for sure. Well, we're definitely not taking Miss Ashley out of the car here and getting her all wet. Not in this. It looks like we're in between the raindrops, so we can get a little look at what this is. A new Merco 60, 61 or a 60?
It says 61.
61. And what do they call? How much do these motors cost? $100?
It cost me $117 shipped to my door.
All right, 117. So
That was, you know, the exchange rate at the time.
yeah.
Too much, but,
Which varies by the hour, as we're finding out as we get ready for England. Oh, 12 o'clock, the exchange rate went up. Now it's $190. Boy, unbelievable. Oh, you want to go back to American money? Ah, you'll lose $40 more. What a rip-off.
we're just running here. What do you want me to do? Fatten it up, point the nose?
Fatten it up and let's just see how it runs. Yeah, that sounds about right. Go ahead, go. If anything, that sounds one click too lean. That sounds about right.
Right there, it says.
Right there, it sounds about right to me anyway. Let's see when he picks the nose up. He might have the tank out of shim too, who knows? Find out.
I think it goes fat when it's converted.
Oh, well that'll screw up anything. Look how crazy the air is, Mike. See the wing dancing around out there? I don't know, that sounds pretty close to me. All right, it's staying lean for the whole maneuver now. Now, see if it does that on outside loops. See, this is the way you can tell if he needs a shim. If it doesn't do that on outside loops. Although it sounds okay in level flight. If the tank shim isn't right, what'll happen, it'll 2-4 and outsides not insides, you know, you just have to shim the tank. No, it's staying lean in maneuvers on outsides too. I don't know, that doesn't sound so bad. He got the wrong prop on the plane. Maybe that prop's no good. Look at this guy's judging Brian's pattern here, his Merco 61. A little low on the bottom. Let's see, is there anything to eat here? How about a salami sandwich? Yeah, I think I'll sit in the director's chair and make a movie. Hey, I'm gonna come over and bite Wendy's big toe. You guys with these model planes, I don't know. Look at him, he's just checking Brian out here. Oh man, that is so cool. I think I'll go fly RC, heck with you. Brian doesn't know he's just been judged on his last flight. Anyway, we're going to try some different props. Whatever ballpark information we can get off of this. It certainly seems like a ballpark motor. I think it needs a prop and maybe a little tuning. I'll be right up there. While we were waiting at the Brian was trying some props on his Sato 56. I don't know what he's got on here now. This is a 12-610. But after the many 56s that we saw at the Nats, a lot of different ways to set them up and get them to run good. And our friend Ron Merrill has one coming. We're going to break in for him, get that tuned in for him. More diversity in the hobby, more neat new things, more reasons to build whatever you want to build, and don't listen to anybody. Just do what you want to do. What is this, a 13, Mike?
Yeah, 13.
Okay, we know this works on a Tiger 60. So what we're going to do is get rid of the prop. I think the prop he has on this plane. This plane is a ton, probably 85 ounces. But we're not interested in that part of it. Just like to see if this motor is going to have a little bit better brake. And with all that pitch, it could run a little bit richer and maybe have a better 2.4 in the maneuvers. And we'll find out. We're going to know very soon, in between the raindrops here. New motor, anything new that we're testing, we don't know where the manufacturer has set the compression on these. High, low, medium. He's got 2 gaskets in there, so what we're going to do is put on the bigger prop, take the 2 gaskets out, and get some idea of where this is. The tip-off here is an engine that isn't using an ounce of fuel a minute is also not cooling, because the alcohol isn't the primary factor in cooling is the alcohol. And it's also not using the right amount of oil. Now if this ran 12 minutes on 6 ounces of fuel, the essence is it's running 10% oil. Only half the amount of oil. God, it hardly even smokes, Brian. I mean, that's a tip-off too. You don't see any smoke, and I know you got...
I run it dead fat, and it just lumbers around, and it runs, but it's just, you know...
Well, look, we'll try this.
I want it to sound like a level flight like it is pretty much, and then, you know...
But in the maneuvers, you want some horsepower. It goes to a 2 and nothing happens. It just sits there like, you know, like there's no power increase.
Yeah, my thought was it doesn't, not that it doesn't have power when it brakes, it's just that when it brakes, it just keeps going.
Yeah, and it does, because you're running it lean. Right. You don't have the alcohol cooling the engine, and you don't have the oil cooling the engine. Once the thing goes lean, it stays lean because it's got no oil and alcohol going through there.
I thought we're going the other way, the exact opposite of
well, we could try it both ways, and if you're right, I'll rephrase my commentary.
Well, I'm assuming, you should know, you've used them, I don't, you know.
Well, I never used this particular engine. I've never had, so I'm learning just as same as you are.
My train of thought is it's the same as a Tiger.
It's basically a copy of a Tiger engine, yeah.
Right. So that's, you know...
It shouldn't, the rules should all be pretty much the same.
Correct.
It should wind up with a 312, 315 Venturi and enough compression to give it a nice 2-cycle brake, and that's it.
Going the other way.
And it's a Hemi head already? Did it come with a Hemi head, or did Tom make it a Hemi head? Okay. Yeah, that's a copy of a Big Jim Hemi, that's all that is. Okay. I don't like how this plug sits so...
You want it down deeper?
No, further out. It's
further away, another gasket in there?
No, no gasket. Well, it's already changed. I see what Tom did. That's a long plug now?
Yeah, that's a Thunderbolt.
Okay. Well, let's see. We'll see. The only way you're going to learn.
I put 4-stroke plug in here to make it run the other day too.
Does it work okay with a 4-stroke plug?
It didn't work. It didn't really work. The only thing that worked was a Fox Gold plug that day. Yeah. I had it in today, and it seems as soon as you take the gold plug off of it, you notice the RPMs drop. It just could be a little hotter, so I went to this. But that could be part of the surging too, if it's really too hot.
But what it's telling you, the compression is so low that it doesn't have enough compression to keep the heat, keep the fire going.
Now, I can run this without any gaskets?
Sure. All right, we're going to try this with the higher compression, the 13.6 prop. Actually, this is a Cardinal kit too. He's going to, I hope, make a British version of this so we can call it the Das Merco. Das Gabelschwanz over here. Hey, at least we're getting some flying here instead of hanging out and drinking beer. Brian's ruler. This ruler is, I wouldn't say, how old do you think this ruler is, Brian? This used to be my ruler when I started the hobby in the 50s. Yeah, oh my God, this thing came apart. It exploded one day on the field. I got so mad I kicked it in the woods. Brian rescued it, duct taped it all up. Works like a jewel.
That's the way you gave it.
When you have a plane that's been repaired and it's real heavy, this is over 80 ounces. This is a candidate for just what we were talking about earlier on in the video, maybe a 1/4-inch extension on each flap. And he's already got everything taped. And so what happens, you still have a functional plane instead of, or if you don't need it, or if your skill level is high enough that you don't need this, well, you can always find somebody that'll use it to test motors in, or to test props, or to just have a fun plane for rainy days like we're having right now. And you don't want to take that good plane and get it all soaking wet. What's different about the Merco? What did you say, it's 8 millimeters?
8mm thread.
Oh my God, that's why that engine's announced. Look at the size of the nut.
They made
What
this,
were they thinking?
they made this out of aluminum.
You know, you just could make this nut out of aluminum. You'd save an ounce on the engine. Holy mackerel. Well, these are the little things that, you know, having that big crankshaft, it's definitely heavy, too. That's why that engine's a little heavier than a Tiger.
Sure, once you commit to the prop.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're married to the prop.
You mean I can't have my prop back? Oh, you can have it.
For a price.
I could have it, but what am I going to do with it?
Mike, you could use these to put the wheels on a car. The needle, it's going to use more fuel with that tire compression. Switching it up, switching it up. Switching it. I didn't want them to get a real lean run, especially when you're trying that. Now, we don't know if this motor's going to turn a 13-inch prop. A Tiger 60 usually will. We'll find out. Too rich. Alright. Run it again, lean it out a little bit. It's better a little rich than a little lean. Okay, so what Brian's going to try now is putting one head gasket in at a time to try to marry the power up to this prop. So we're going to be getting to go soon because we have a little family cookout today, and uh-oh, that sounds good. Sounds like Roy's going to whack a plane over there. Maybe get up on time for the family cookout here. It's not even an hour later and Woodchuck Man is back. You know what we got to do, Mike? We got to find out where he lives and capture woodchucks from the field and bring them to his property. Let him eat all his vegetables. Oh man, Woodchuck Man is releasing more woodchuck. We're going to have a woodchuck problem here pretty soon. He's looking guilty. He says, oh, I don't know. I don't know if these guys are going to...
Puts them in the trunk so they can't find their way back.
Yeah, right. We got to catch him and bring him back to his house. Follow him home. Find out where he lives. Put thousands of woodchucks on his property.
Okay.
And he was here before I even got here? Vince Woodchuck Man, he's got to bring them to the back of the property now instead of releasing them. So he goes by the road, they get run over. So Woodchuck Man's going to bring them with the assistance of Mike. Mike the Woodchuck Man. Show him how to release a woodchuck, Mike. Chickadooley would be so proud of Mike. Well, honey, look, we can release these woodchucks. So he was here 3 times today releasing. Does he have a job? A family? Anything to do with his life except catch woodchucks? This ought to be funny. Mike's going to go over and give him a hard time. Oh, man. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck... Now look at the action here. There's all... Nowhere else on earth do you have crazy stuff like this happening. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck? Actually, while we are flying here, though, we do enjoy we have deer that come in and out of here. We have snapping turtles. We've had plenty of woodchucks and geese over the years, although it doesn't look like the geese are as much of a problem this year. And we have all these wild birds that come out of these chickadoolies.
A little bit leaner again.
Here we go. Here we go. Go on, just reach in with your bare hand. What's the problem? Look at these little guys go.
Just having a bigger problem.
They're not woodchucks. They're squirrels. He's catching squirrels. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You got enough charge to fly it?
No. Charge?
Yes, I was down by Sergio's club. They had hundreds of them down there. It was unbelievable. Some days when you come home from the flying field, you're kind of depressed because you wanted to stay at the flying field. Not today. Check it out. Oh, my son has the grill going, baby. Oh, yeah. Look at those ribs.
Grill.
All right, grill man. This way, in case my business ever goes bankrupt, we'll just open up a restaurant.
Yeah, the barbecue, Wendy's barbecue.
Wendy's barbecue pit. It's looking good. Karen's little business making birdhouses is prospering. We have about half of the people in our neighborhood that have one already. Of course, we're sick of looking at them, but Karen is very creative with her little birdhouses. In fact, there's one behind the table. How many of these things we have? Anyway, one day next week, we're going to get a day of running the B-25 in. We're certainly not going to do it today. It's a family day, but we're getting ready. We're coming up on that time when it's going to be time to test the B-25. And I can't wait. We waited a whole year for this time, and it's not far away. Official Windy video. You have to tell us your name. What's your name?
I'm Rob Kastner.
Okay, and tell us about the award you won with this plane.
Well, I entered a 4-H fair for my plane, and I won Best in Show.
Now, this is a plane that you built as a part of the group of, I know there's a group of guys in the all building planes.
I built this as a 4-H club called the Flying Wildcats.
Okay.
And I entered this at the Morris County 4-H fair.
Okay.
See the ribbon on there?
Okay. And you're the winner, obviously, or you wouldn't have the ribbon. Now, you built most of it yourself.
Yes.
Who helped you, Carl?
My father.
Okay.
Carl. Roy.
Okay, Roy Ward's involved in that too?
Ward, yeah.
Fantastic.
I think Alan Mary also helped.
Oh, Alan Mary helped everybody.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to fly it today? You going to put it up for a flight?
I'm not sure because this plane hasn't flown yet.
Well, that never stopped me. It's got to fly sometime.
Yeah.
It's like jumping in the swimming pool on a hot day. Sometimes you just have to jump.
Well, I might fly today.
Well, I'm going to stick around for a little while, but I hope you're going to be enjoying the hobby for a long time. See, we don't call it a hobby. We call it a sport. So we're all trying to get in the habit. It is a sport, too. Whenever you mention it to your friends, tell them it's a sport. Ha! We got more people coming in here. Okay. Good luck. Carl, how many kids do you anticipate having out here today? Two? Okay.
It was difficult to get the two.
Well, we'll get some video of them flying. I'll give them a copy, and I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
Wendy, they videoed us. Cablevision videoed me on Friday doing a Learn to Fly
Great.
at the fair, and they were in the middle of the circle with us.
All right. Send them to my house if they want pro stuff.
Sure.
Cool. Is that great? The Snake Man. Yeah. Nice. That's a 3 megapixel. Beautiful. It's 3 megapixels. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Kim said, I think he'll be there tomorrow. Make sure he sees this. That's a great shot, isn't it?
Yep.
Just
How are you doing this morning? Did you guys make it out okay? It started to rain and stuff.
Great picture. It's the, she's not a snake fan. Just made her day.
To fill in the details, this is Carl Holsworth, who got us on the front page of the paper recently with a nice article. He has, and I'm gonna hope I'm right on the number, between 17 and 19 young children that have all been part of the 4-H club and built their own model with the help of Dad and possibly some of the circle burners, Carl, Alan, Mary, Tom Hampshire. Now, a couple of them are rolling in here now. They're going to have a little fun fly day, teaching the kids how to fly. And my part of this is just to come out and enjoy a nice relaxing day with them. Shoot a little video and give them a copy so they can basically just enjoy being around model planes, get a little taste of what it's like being around planes, the smell of the oil. And we got some parents here, and we have a photographer from, looks like somebody that knows how to shoot pictures or just has an expensive camera. We're not sure which. Just one of the many ways our club tries to help promote the sport, get some new people involved. Trainers and some planes that are capable of doing maneuvers. This will be a great, fun day. Introducing some new faces to the world of control line, the sport of model aviation. I'm sure the kids are going to be ready for the combat job, but they've got a couple of them out here just in case. I guess some of these kids, I'm not sure, one of them said he's already soloed out and one is ready to solo. Always a lot of fun. Oh, it's hard not to mention some of the people, Paul Holsworth, Alan Mary, people that I know, Roy Ward, Tom Hampshire, they've all put a lot of time and energy into this program. And our congratulations again, even though on the Circle Burner Meet video we did not get Al's winning flight. He was the winner of the Red Reinhardt Cup, flying his Cardinal. We're going to try to get a day later this week. They're predicting 5 days of really hot weather. We're going to try to get a couple of, if we can see the air, it's just won't be not appropriate for doing the testing we want to do with our control system. But I'm sure we'll have an enjoyable day out here with the 4-H kids. And they did get a nice picture in the newspaper. That was on the front page of the paper. Good publicity for the sport of model aviation. Next up on our little fun Friday is going to be Mary Knight flying her Buster, and they're going to try to get some pictures from inside the circle for the newspaper. The reporter that's here is going to try to stand out in the middle of the circle, so we'll see how this works out. I've tried doing this several times and it's really awkward. It's almost like team racing in reverse here. So we'll see if this woman is able to get some good shots. She's going to take some, I think, some pictures for the newspaper, but and of course we're looking forward to trying to get some publicity for the sport, so, and possibly bring in some new kids to the club.
You're gone, yeah, you're
And that's what they said here. And especially later on in the contest.
This may look real easy to do if you're the photographer. Trust me, this is difficult. And it's even more difficult shooting video. And then when we were doing the Z-Tron videos and I was trying to shoot Mike flying a plane, it was an adventure. But the idea is to give the kids a little show that what are some of the possibilities in the world of control line. And one of the club members even brought out his twin-engine bomber. Just what I need to make me crazy as I wait to get that B-25 going. As one of the trainer planes out for one of the new recruits.
Pick up the handle and check it.
loose that neutral on that handle. The guy's got about 30 degrees up to keep it level. Or is that just to give him a little challenge? Make it exciting for him.
Good challenge.
All right, one graduate of the 4-H program.
And it's just like any other race, just going to different positions after safety.
I'm in training.
Well, since this young man has not soloed out yet, Mary's going to give him a little hand. Try to get him to solo out a little bit during his flight. The thing that's happening with this 4-H program is something you wish it would happen all over the country hundreds and hundreds of times, so that a lot of these young people would just be exposed to the sport of model aviation and get to feel it and see it and touch it and smell it and just be part of it. We're getting some good newspaper publicity out of this too, by the way. Like I said, we've been in our paper, and I see there's another paper there, and I didn't get a chance to shoot the headline, but they're getting some good publicity. Then it goes dead lean. Oh no. This is not exactly what they had in mind. I think they were looking for more of a rich run. Mary's trying to shake the plane, get the engine to calm down, slow down a bit. Got a little Sato in there, Al?
Yeah, that's the one I got from you.
Oh, okay. Got his little fuel pickup inside the cowl. Kind of neat. Are you out to compete with Augie in this Cub War or whatever you guys are having?
Augie was in love with this little thing.
I like this better than his. Don't tell him I said so.
This is not a,
You bet.
this is not a Piper, you know. It's a
Baraka, right.
No, Al's gonna fly.
When my father was alive, this was one of the last planes he owned, was an Araka on floats.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sam Belloyd really liked this plane too. He likes these kind of...
Good choke.
Pretty airplane.
Oh yeah, cute. You let loop?
I don't know.
Did you try looping it yet?
I had a weak prop on here. This is a different prop I'm trying.
And so difficult to start. that got a nice realistic sound too.
You should go out in the middle of the circle with Alan.
Yeah, and then you dump them in, and then you can
just put we'll put like an ounce of fuel in.
Cooper's here helping out with the festivities. Can fly a demonstration flight for the kids. And it looks like the weatherman's really contributing a nice warm, breezy but not too windy day. Rick's going for his next flying lesson with Al. What a great day. Very great to see some new kids, new faces, and some fun club activity based on hopefully exposing these kids to something they may never have seen in school.
She'll probably put a list in of other folks, you know, at the end of the story. That's the biggest one.
I think the landing gears are a little tighter, so I don't know.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. Take care. Hopefully we'll see you kids out here. Bye-bye.
Challenging photo with climbing?
Oh, I wish I could. Yeah, good.
Little adjustment to the needle valve here. think we may have to fire the mechanic here. Next up is our superstar. Oh! Uh-oh, ow! Sounds like he stuck his finger in a prop. Now this is his own plane. This is not the club trainer. That's the he built that plane himself?
Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't, the plane before was not up in my place.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yours. I know was yours. Yeah. All right. All right. So what Al's doing is just testing the plane to make sure the handle's set and that it flies level and stuff. All right, he's up. Now this is his plane, not the club trainer. This young man is going to be a star of the future. He's doing really good. I'm impressed. We really had a great day up with the kids in the 4-H club, Carl and all the people from the club, Al and Mary. But we have work to do in the shop. It's them, it's making up a real sophisticated break-in stand, but we have had motors to break in all summer. We've had real good luck breaking in some of the bar stocks for Les Demet. And today we have a 56 for Ron Merrill that we're going to break in. Now just today, Paul Walker purchased the 72. And I'm not so sure if he's going to build out a new plane or if he's going to try that out in a Mustang. We'll look forward to hearing that. Anyway, when you get a brand new Sato, there's a couple of things I've learned, and I'm publishing them in Stunt News for anybody who really doesn't follow the videos, and things we've learned the easy way, the hard way. You get a new Sato, breaking it in is a critical thing. One of the things you don't want to do is put a Venturi on it and then go run it. You really want to break it in with the carburetor in place. And of course all Satos come with their own unique tools. And what we do is we break them in for customers, set the carburetor to get a reasonably nice idle. So pretty much the deal is that it would be a turnkey operation when it's done. You check the valves, make sure that they're still within the lash that they fall for. We have a specific break-in prop, and we know an RPM that we like to run the motors at. But when these come, they are really jewelry. They're really exceptionally nice. About this break-in operation, unless, like I said, is making up a real pro setup, we only use this as a temporary stopgap until we have Les's setup, which I hope is going to be real soon. Anybody that has never seen the jet system, the break-in system, it's all solid billet. It's really a work of art. Anyway, that's how quick we can get the motors in and out, and that's what makes this setup real good. We have a nice 32-ounce tank. So for the 4-stroke, usually 1.5, 2 tanks of that fuel, and they're ready to go. As soon as that oil comes out clean, they're ready to go. One of the things I found that really work well, at least for us, so far, virtually all the engines we've broken in with the carburetor, getting them to, Sato recommends under 4,000 RPM, and that's what we try to do. If you have a Venturi already in place, that can be a problem, unless you run it so rich. In fact, I've never been able to run it rich enough, and you really don't want to run it that rich. So if you have a brand new Sato, and you don't want the dealer or myself to break it in for you, well, the choice is pretty much, we have this little break-in stand with a little adjuster, and we can control a throttle throw, and that gives us a throttle adjustment as we're working on it. This has been a really good setup so far. And what we try to do is when the customer is ready for the engine, there's a couple little things, like for instance, the back of the washer that comes with the engine is smooth. I like to put some knurls on that. Now what this does, it's an ordinary engraving tool, $10 tool. It allows the prop to get a better bite. And since 4-strokes tend to backfire every once in a while, you want that to be as knurled as possible. Things that I found is a good test of how these motors break in. First off, you don't want to run them wide open. You don't want to run them like a 2-stroke. You don't need a 2-for them or any of that nonsense. What you need to do is check the oil. Now we mix our break-in fuel with a little bit of extra oil, just a tad extra oil. You want to get the little overflow here, and then I want to monitor with a paper towel the oil that's coming out of here. It's going to come out black when it starts because all the parts are wearing in, but then eventually it's going to come out cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, and at some point in time, we can just lay that back there for right now. We also want to have a way of controlling the throttle, because we want to keep the RPM under 4,000 for the first roughly for an hour. And what we could do here is we just get it, because this is nice and quiet, we could run this right in our backyard. We don't need to even go to the field today. We could run this right here. But this is, I really suggest anybody who's going to break it in, if you're going to use a Venturi, break it in, and there's an article going to be in Stunt News real soon with what I've learned. Get it broken in. Make sure the prop is tight and the washer is knurled, and run it until the oil comes out perfectly clean. And that's usually an hour and a half, an hour, depending. Each motor is just a little bit different. Over the last 2 years of breaking in these engines, there's certainly some things we found, and it's that first hour or so that's real critical. You don't want the engine to go over 4,000 RPM. Already the oil is coming out of here. Well, that is just about as sweet as it gets. When this one's all run in and the oil is coming out perfectly clean, that oil is going to come out clean. It's going to take some time. Now the nice thing is, while this is running, we can be doing other things. We just keep an eye on it and make sure I come over with the tack every once in a while, make sure the RPM isn't going up over 4,000. See how that's, well, you get that focus in, but it's really pumping oil. And the oil is aluminum, you can see it going down through the tube. Now, we still want to get some flights before the year's out, some more flights on our Typhoon. One thing nice about having an old Air Force full of planes, we have some of everything. We have some of the pipe planes, some of the Tiger 60 ships, some of the four-strokes, and that's what really keeps our interest high all through the year, just having new stuff all the time. Now, what we didn't check in this, and I'm sure it's one of the things Paul's going to be trying soon, we never ran a 56 in this plane, and that would bring the weight down to under 60 ounces if we had a 56 instead of it. We have a 72, it gets the weight to about 63 ounces, and with the carbon tank it's probably down about 62, so this should be a lot of fun once we get our concrete field back. But again, the primary focus, and we're going to be starting real soon as I can get Wes Dimmitt over here for a day. We're going to do some more bench running on the engines and get the carbs fine-tuned, because we're only weeks away from being able to fly this. And I guess if anybody's wondering, there is no way I'm going to fly this plane on circle burner field on the grass. We want to wait for the field at Palisade Park to give it every possible opportunity to be able to use the Zetron and the things that we actually built the plane for, all the features, the rollout, the takeoff, the landing, whatever, and of course, hopefully, a stunt pattern. I saw Al Knight earlier in this video, and this is a shot of Al. He had won the Red Reinhardt Cup, a very prestigious award, and at least in our opinion, my opinion, something every club member aspires to. Anyway, he has had nothing but the best of luck. This is a stock Cardinal kit. It's monocoated, and Al has just had, for an advanced level flyer, this has really helped him move up the ladder quickly. And I think he's going to be writing a little report for Stunt News, so that should be a lot of fun. Now, after 2 tanks of fuel, ooh, that feels nice. This is the main thing, as you can see, and I'll scoop the oil up. The oil that's coming out of here, clean as a whistle. And what I usually do, I just leave this on the rich side so that when whoever's going to run this, it'll be rich, it'll probably go in 2 or 3 clicks. Ooh, that is nice now. Boy, that's about as good as it gets. And boy, seeing how nice Paul Walker's engine ran at the Nats, I hope Ron's going to have real good luck with this. One of the things I wanted to do, as long as we're breaking in engines and I'm all greased up, I had shimmed this tank 4 or 5 times already to get it the way I wanted it. This, of course, is the Laser 70. It's a relatively heavy engine, but we had some real nice runs the last time we flew it. And we're going to try to get a day of testing it at the field. I made some props for it. This runs at a little bit lower RPM than the Sato. This sets in the plane is a little unusual in terms of where the muffler exits and having that tank shim way up. And we only have a couple of days of flying on this, but it really did show a lot of promise. And while we have some downtime in between, we're waiting for our 65 Rojet. I figured we'd get a couple of days of flying this in. Really unusual engine. This was donated to us by Elliott Scott, and we basically got about a gallon and a half of fuel through it, but not really pushed it to the limit so far. Not really fine-tuned props, not really, and I hope we have the tank shim finalized now for once. So what I did, I replaced the plug. I think that plug was too cold for the engine. What I did, I put in a Thunderbolt long RC. And the last thing I'll do is I'll put in a 4-cycle NOS Max, and I want to get this, that it runs a little smoother and a little hotter. I think the plug in this engine, the day we were testing this, I think the plug was too cold. It just seemed to be running rough. Well, we got 2 ships ready for the test day, and we're waiting for some decent weather here. Have a little fun with the 4 strokes, have a little fun with the 2 strokes. We'll just have a lot of fun, period. There's going to be Middlesex contest is coming up Sunday, and we'll see which one of these guys we feel like flying. Looking back all the way to 1987, it's hard to believe we've had so many different motors in the old tradition. Anyway, wanted to, in the last couple of days we've put some good data into our database, and I wanted to go over it with a little bit of a storyboard. Now, after several days at the flying field and bench running and test running, we've come to absolutely one conclusion that's different than a Sato, is the tank shim, and I want to go over how this evolved. This, of course, is the engine, pardon my artwork. The Laser is the only engine that we've tested that has the carburetor itself attached right to the head, and I'm trying to make a center line here. And what that meant was when we set this up, now if you were running this in an RC scale plane, it wouldn't even matter, but you could put the tank in various places, and that's what this engine is made for. But we found out absolutely positively, and after doing this back and forth and shimming it too far in each direction, the center of that carburetor where the needle valve is seems like it wants to be right on the tank center line. Now, unlike the Sato has, I'm just making this for a reference point so you can get some idea. The carburetor would be here. Now, especially the 72, where we have really hundreds of flights, that center line, now it may be that the shim is off a 64th one way or another, but what happens with a Laser, it seems like, and this is valuable data that we put into our database, it seems like where the carburetor is on the engine, that's where the tank wants to be centered. In other words, it seems like, at least for all the purposes and all the testing we've done, we've kind of settled in on this. So one of the ways Brian Manow found a way that I'm not sure I totally agree with this, but it seemed to work. It worked pretty well on his 4-stroke Sato 56. Is he measured up where the carburetor was, made a tank shim, got this right in line as a starting point. And then what he did, he set the engine to various speeds, and I think in his case it was 9,500. So we're just going to man it. The speed is not relevant because it would relate to the prop. But then what he did, he had the plane there, tacked it, took the plane and turned it over, tacked it, and just kept shimming the plane without ever even flying it, just to get it roughly the same both ways. Now that's really a crude way to do it, and it doesn't take into account the amount of yaw that the rudder would put into this at various places in the pattern, especially with a Raby rudder. This may not be exactly what you want. It's better to do it in flight, but what this does, what's real nice about doing it that way is it gives you a real good starting point. You don't get the first flight, flip the plane over on its back and the motor shuts off, or it goes dead lean. So those are two things, two little pieces of data that I feel it's worth passing on now to the people that are aggressively pursuing 4 strokes. We still have the 4-stroke in our Typhoon, of course. But the problem is we have too many planes to fly. We have our new Jet 65 bar stock coming, and we really, number one priority is to get that B-25 in the air in the next month. So we've got a lot of things to work on. This is good data you can put right in the database. Now, you saw earlier in the video we were at the field, actually been at the field several days. Some days I haven't even brought the camera, but Brian has purchased a Mirko 61. This is the new version. And he's learned a couple of things right away that we can pass on to you if you've got any desire to try a Merco 61. The first problem that he had was the fuel consumption was very, very low. Now, when I say that, and I'm using his numbers, he was using 3 ounces of fuel, and it was running 12 minutes when he got the engine, after he broke it in. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, and you always have people, oh, wow, my max FP, or my this or that or that, or whatever, it only uses 1 ounce of fuel an hour. Well, there's a problem with that, and almost anybody that knows anything about engines is going to tell you what will happen if you're running 3 ounces. This means that you're running, just to make a rough number up, you're running 4 minutes per ounce. Now, forget every other factor. Right off the bat, the first day Brian was out with the plane, and we weren't there with the camera that day, the first day, as the motor was shipped, he was running 4 minutes an ounce, and I pretty much told him that what's going to happen is you're only running, I like to use 1 minute per ounce as a good guideline. Now, this assumes you have 22% oil, Power Master fuel. So what happens is you really have, in this case, it's like running 5% oil. That's exactly, you've got 1/4 of the amount of oil, maybe even less, because as you get the mixture leaner and leaner and leaner, what's going to happen? The motor runs hotter and hotter and hotter. So there's a golden rule that I've come to respect, that when I start tuning a motor, I'd like to start at the 1 ounce a minute range. In other words, a 6 ounce tank, a pattern takes 5.5 minutes, 10 laps after the pattern. So what Brian did, he had Tom Hampshire drill out, and I think he drilled out the Venturi. So that was step 2. The Venturi, I don't know what size it was, but he wound up making it 312. And now it came out to being that he was running about 8 minutes on 3 ounces. So it was a significant improvement, but still not right. Now the next step, and we haven't finished this yet, but we'll try to report in on it, he was shimming the head up, shimming the head down. As you shim the head up, as you add head shims, the mileage, it uses less and less fuel. So my thought was he should take the head, Tom Hampshire can take it, and mill 20 thousandths off the bottom of the head. 20 thousandths is roughly the thickness of a typical Tiger head gasket, 20 to 24 thousandths. Because what we're trying to do, or what Brian is trying to do, is get the motor to use 1 ounce of fuel a minute. Now, it may seem like this is kind of basic, but this really is when first off, the motor was making nice power. It's an inexpensive motor. It's about $100, a little over $100. It seemed to 2.4 real nice. It seemed to be willing to turn a 12 and 3/4 inch prop. It got soft on a 13-inch prop, I think because the compression was too low, and we were really in a couple of hot days there. So this is what we've learned about the Merco so far. And there's going to be a lot of people that this motor, once it's tuned to use 1 ounce of fuel a minute, I think it's going to be an acceptable motor, and it's going to have a real nice place in the hobby for retrofitting planes or for people building planes around it. Again, if you get a motor with a little tiny Venturi and real low compression, and it's running forever on fuel, you want to get it down to where it's using, I think, a good starting point is 1 ounce a minute. And that lets you know that enough alcohol is going through the motor, cooling it. A lot of people think the air cools a motor. I think the number I've read over and over again is about 85% of the cooling that gets done on a motor gets done by the alcohol in the fuel, and probably 15% by the head fins. But still, if you're not putting enough alcohol through, you're not putting enough coolant through. The oil acts as a coolant. The oil pulls heat, especially the castor oil. But if you decide you like to try one of these motors, my suggestion would be don't even fool with it until you get a big Venturi in there and get the compression up to where it's using about 1 ounce a minute. You can even check that on the bench. And get it in the ballpark before you even put it in the plane. And that should be able to save everybody just a little bit of time and energy. And I think that motor is going to have a good future once it's fine-tuned. over the past few years, my interest in the hobby is certainly geared toward building new, unusual, maybe ships that are just a little different. Warbirds, Twins, Zetrons, Typhoons, whatever. I really do like to compete, and hey, let's be honest, I'd love to go win the Nats 15 times in a row or something and be a hero, but there's a reality to it, and I think it's something we all have to accept. We're all getting older. Our energy levels aren't what they used to be. And the new guys in the event, the younger guys, let's be honest, one by one they're going to take our place. And sometimes when you look at that, you can be saying, oh, gee, that's terrible. Oh, it really isn't. But there's one thing that stays the same in this hobby for me no matter what. And I shouldn't say hobby. I promised John Brodak I'd say sport. And that is coming up with new and different planes every year. That's the part of the sport that I really enjoy the most. I enjoy videotaping all this and sharing it and hearing about other people's, the things they want to do. Joe Adamusco's biplane project. Other things that Dan Banjock's working on, I think they're just incredible. But I had one thing that I wanted, before we get to the end of this video, one thing that we were talking about at the field, and on the way home I thought about it and I said, gee, that sounds like something that would appeal to me. Now the problem is time. Well, first off, if you didn't have to work, if you could be really retired, well, that certainly would change things. But being like fake retired, like I am, where you're retired but you work more hours than if you work, well, I still do something I love, so I shouldn't say anything. But one of the things, and I just want to share this with everybody that's been around and been on my video list for so long, there will be a time real soon, and it's probably 2 to 3 years away, when Karen will be totally retired, and I'll probably then at that point in time look at maybe being a little more retired than I am now. And I'm always looking for new projects, new exciting things that not many people have done or that nobody's done. I wanted a couple of years ago to try to work on the development of an all-carbon fiber plane. Certainly, I would say it's safe to say that this wing performs at a level that is totally competitive, even though sometimes I'm not. I don't see a whole lot about the wing other than finding the material that we're ultimately looking for, and that is the 2-ounce carbon. If we ever find that, we will certainly be moving forward on that part of the project. We know we can make carbon fiber fuselages, and we know they work, last, hold up well in service. And as we come up on the time for flying the B-25, I mean, there's just so many things. So many ideas I have for next year's building season, but one idea has really caught my mind, and I want to go with, just want to get some feedback from people, seeing if this is something they might think would be interesting. But we were hashing this out at the Circle Burner Field the other day, and it really didn't pique my interest at the time, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought about this might be something that'd be fun to do one winter. Now, where this project gets its, I guess the basis of it is to build 2 relatively identical planes, and one based on the Rojet 65, which we should have shortly, and one based on the Barstock 40, which is a much smaller engine. This is based on the 35 case. So what I had thought about doing is designing up, and just for lack of something better, we'll just make whatever this sketch would be, making up one of our kind of a traditional ship in the typical sizes that we all know work, 700 to 725 square inches, roughly in that area, using all proven components that we already knew work. Roughly a 62-inch span, and then downsizing the plane So it pretty much would look exactly like the original one, except be just a tad smaller. And I'm not so sure how much that dimension, this is where I would kind of want to run this by some of the people, Dave Downey for one, Bill Nets Band for another one, and I would be thinking this plane should be about 650 inches, have maybe a 58-inch span, 57, 58-inch span. But because, here's the reason this all becomes practical. First off, having the Rojet engines, we know they're going to work. We know they're going to be dead reliable, and we know that's probably what we're going to base our competition planes around in the future. If they're not four-strokes, the four-stroke ones will be based around Satos, especially if they're semi-scale planes. But for all purposes here, what would be neat about this kind of a Gemini project would be to build two almost identical planes. Now, the neat thing here is you would probably try to get this one to come in around 62 ounces. This one maybe, I don't know, 55. So you would have two ships that very similar, but in two different size brackets, and be able to compare them. Now, if we go ahead with this project, and there's no saying we will or won't, it's just one of the other things that's on the table for next year. The Gemini project, it looks like what would make this possible is Dave Downey having the ability with his CAD CAM to make things enlarged and shrink down infinitely. And we could give Dave numbers for this plane, draw up a rough set of plans, and have him downsize it to this size plan. Now, I just think this shows a lot of interest. And if we were going to build two planes in the same year, one of the things we'd want to consider here is to keep the construction to a minimum, possibly using foam wings in both of them, making them as relatively simple to build as possible, not making them complex like the B-25, possibly just making them that they would be quick and easy to build, and that would have a very good effect on getting both of them to be very similar in the way they're built, maybe the way they'll even fly. But it's something that I've never done yet, and that in itself has some appeal to me. But it may be something that the more I think about it, the more it's going to appeal to me. And that remains to be seen, of course, in the future. Just as one more choice to a year that it looks like we're going to have a lot of choices. And where it's all going to shake and bake out, only time is going to tell. And when we get back from England, that's going to be the point in time when we're going to want to start cutting balls. So we're doing laying up carbon or whatever. And that's the part of the sport that appeals to me. Just building the same plane over and over and over and over. Yes, you'd be more competitive, I'm sure. But it just wouldn't be as much a drill. We'll do it with the drill. We want to know where we're starting from now. All right, tell everybody your name. You're back in the hobby. He's back addicted to drugs.
I'm back in the hobby after 50 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I originally was in it. I flew stunt and everything else, but in 50 years, things have changed tremendously.
Yeah, I've gotten old is what's happened. You haven't, but... And your name is John?
My name is John Pickett.
Okay.
I'm part of the Circle Burners Club.
Oh, man, that's the worst club. Those guys, they're all drunks. Anyway, let's see what you got. He's got some cool stuff.
This is an original. I built it mainly to try out a few different things that I wanted to try for some time. One was the stabilizer controls.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing, if you notice, on the top here is a trim aileron. And on the lower side, underneath, is another trim aileron. What these are supposed to do for me, they move about 2 degrees, is when the plane goes through maneuvers, this one goes up. In other words, when you give it up control, this one goes up and keeps like a 2-degree pitch, almost the same as having rudder control.
Okay.
It'll make the plane pull to the outside. If you look underneath, here's the other one.
Oh, okay.
Give down control, this will...
And they're interconnected with the controls?
They're interconnected with the controls. They only work when the gear comes up. The gear I have locked down because I was in the mode to try to check this thing out up to these 2 points in the gear. But I'm having problems with over-controlling and it causing me to stall out. Now, I brought the thing to Wendy.
Well, I can tell you why you're having trouble, because the pivot point here is too far back.
Is it?
Yeah, the pivot point needs to be way far forward of that. That's an easy cure. I mean, we know what the problem's going to be right off the bat. That's not going to be a hard one to figure out. The pivot point, where this pivots, if it's up here, it'll be it'll be like the wheel of a shopping cart. If you put it back here, you'd never be able to fly the plane. You know what I'm saying? There's a point. I think the given point on this, and you could ask Bill Netzband would be the one to know. We could email him right now, in fact. This is probably like, I'm going to guess, 15%. Because you want more behind it than in front of it. As this deflects, hold your hand out the car window, and you'll see what I mean. Move around your middle finger. It'll be very hard to fly level. That'll be the problem.
Okay, one of the things, let me explain why it was done the way it was done. Okay, I wasn't aware of the pivot point being important to being here. My
182, give or take.
What I was looking for was, in other words, normally when you look at an elevator movement,
right,
you normally try to get anywhere from somewhere around 30, 35 degrees on the elevator. Okay? By me doing this, I was picking up an additional 30 degrees, which would give me 30 and 30, which would give me 60.
You need to move it a lot less.
It's too much now.
Oh yeah, yeah. You need to move that about 5 degrees.
Right.
Right. That would be. In other words, slowing that motion down would be step one. If you couldn't change the pivot point, that would help.
I noticed, because one of the things is once you get it in the air,
right,
you have no problem until you start giving it control. Once you start giving it control,
it gets unstable.
It just goes crazy. It wants to do its own thing.
And you got the side exhaust jet, which we're just miking up to see what Venturi's side he had.
182.
And the head is already shimmed on that? Looks like the head already has some shims in it. We're just comparing it with Les's.
It is definitely the low time motor though.
Oh, okay.
Is that good or bad?
No,
good. Oh, it's definitely good.
How long have you had
A
that?
Raptor. I think you should make a bird, a plane called the Oriole. Hey, Raptor. Anyway, I think it's only going to be a matter of time, and John is going to be building a Cardinal. I think this was the funniest thing on the whole Nats thing. We caught this kid fishing in the Nats in the pond, and made him throw the fish back. I don't know if that really was that funny after all. I don't know, Chickadooley. I don't know whether I should trust this bird or not. He does not approve of the Raptor. He wants Cardinals. We have a project I thought I'd share with the people. Of course, whenever you have a tune pipe and there's baffles in here, well, there's always a possibility. I think this is an old Brian Ether prop. It was sent to me by Kim Foster, and what he did, he bought one of my pipes, and I thought I'd try to fix this for him so he'd have a spare, but you can hear it's a problem. Now, what I did, I tried to look inside with a... Shush! I'm trying to look in there and see. It's the first baffle. It's totally loose. Now, it's really difficult when a pipe is made to bond anything aluminum to anything composite. This is just one example of what can happen. Let's see where that piece is. If we can see it, we may have a chance of working it loose. Anyway, you can hear it. So the cost of, doesn't matter what pipe you buy, pipes are always subject to. Now see, you can see another thing, the way the resin is cured. Back here is where the baffle is. This is where there's a hot spot. The resin has already changed color. Same as it changes up here, because this is where they typically get hotter than normal. And back here where the baffle is, so it's probably telling you that the baffle is pretty restrictive. I can look in there. But of course, at the price pipes are, it pays to try to fix this, and that's what I'm going to try to do for Kim. I'm trying to look in there and see exactly where that baffle is laying and why it's broken. Let's see if you can see that up there. I'm not sure you can really see this. Okay, now you can see it. Okay, there it is. It's just floating around in there. It's totally come apart. I've got a grip on it, except I can't see from this angle. I'm going to have to get my... What I'll try to do is shine a light in the other end, and I can see. See, now I'm holding it. And I wonder, it looks like it's the tube that's used to connect here. I can't really tell. Yeah, it's the tube. So now there could be a way we can get this out. I doubt if we can. Not real confident we're going to be able to get this out. If I could squeeze it down. After chewing away at this for about an hour, I realized that part is not coming out until I grind this piece off. So I'm going to have to make another tail piece for this, which is not really a big problem. But this is, this is the baffle, the tube that interconnected the baffles. And you can see it was broken. It's broken on one side or not the other, I'm not sure. But to get it out, now I want to roughen this back piece up with some rough sandpaper and make a back piece for this. Any kind of a good composite bond, you need to get 80 grit sandpaper, and in this case I got some M600. I want to roughen this whole area up. Without roughening it up, no matter what you do to bond this, it's not going to stick. That bond, again, I want to get a good bite into the old epoxy. Now I have to see if I can make a little part, or one that I already have, from one of the molds I already have. Parts that I used are molded to make the baffles and the back ends of the custom pipes I make. So what I need to do here, roughen up where the joint is going to be, roughen it up inside, of course, and then get the hole diameter to what we want to use as the replacement hole diameter for this pipe. The idea again is to get it rough on the inside as well as the outside. Seemed like this cutter worked the best. I tried a couple different cutters here to get that inside diameter and also to get this area roughed up as rough as possible so we get a good bond. Now it's critical to get these areas roughed up with 80 grit paper, and I want to leave enough room for what I'm going to try to do is make a little fillet of JB Weld there. And JB Weld this far back in the pipe should be fine. You never really know. But even if this part were to come off, there'd be no catastrophic damage. It just would be a little bit louder. My friend John Pothia came up with these little, I guess they're tops from water bottles. Anyway, he sent me a bunch of them. This is a perfect thing to use for mixing up the JB Weld. Use a little flux brush. Now, you know, with JB Weld, we could use pipe resin. I don't think pipe resin is going to be any better. And then we'd have to post-cure it again, so I don't really want to post-cure a pipe that's already soaked with oil. And this, in the past, has worked. You just can't do this every time. Up in the front of the pipe, especially toward the back, this shouldn't be a problem. Again, because it's a spare pipe, this is not the primary pipe that Kim's going to be using. We can kind of do a little experiment here. What we want to do is get a nice bead. You remember the old days when you take your car to a mechanic and he'd fix an alternator or fix a starter or do things? Well, nobody fixes anything anymore. You take a car and they unplug the motor and put a new one in. Well, we're trying to go back to kind of the old days when people used to know, first off, they had to know how to fix them, and then have the energy level to do it. Now, the key part with this cone, I'll call this the tail cone for lack of a better word, is we want to get it's purposely left rough inside, and to get a bond, we need to get it even rougher. The rougher, the better. And this will save Kim basically $100, so. And if it doesn't work, he can holler at me and return the other material I sent him. But we'll give it our best, the best try we can at getting them what will amount to be a spare extra pipe, rather than just deep six in this. Hey! Get out of here. Oh man, this is all I need. Get away! JB Weldbird is over here. Okay, now we're going to have to sit this, first get a good bond, and first get some heat on this, just to, Jeez! JB Bird, get out of here. He's got to check everything out. I'm not kidding, Chicky. I'm not kidding. I'll let that dry overnight. See how that hardens up. We may want to put some half-ounce cloth, another layer of JB Weld, and some half-ounce cloth. I'm not sure. I'm going to see how strong that is tomorrow when I come back to it. Well, the pipe dried up well. Today we're going to ship it back out to Kim, get his opinion of, well, we'll see how that back end holds on. Again, there's no guarantee on a repair like this, but if we can salvage one, all part of crash repairs. And the countdown begins. If you only knew. We have the calendar set and we're crossing the days off like a man that's in prison on his sentence to die or something. Just can't wait to get this guy in the air. As well as I'm sure the whole crew that participated in the development and building. And Chicky. He just can't leave us alone. It's just unbelievable. And even Dub Jet is excited about the possibility of seeing this in the air, getting some video. And the hundreds and hundreds of hours of work that we put into this, it's very soon going to come to our, well, one way or another, the adventure is going to continue. And that's what life really is, an adventure. And if you know where you're going, you're not much of an adventure at all. Just a little reminder, last year we made the tape up of all of Paul Walker's B-17 flights. It turned out to be a very popular tape. A lot of people enjoyed it because, well, needless to say, not everybody can afford to be at the Nats or fly out to Seattle and see the plane. Well, the video allows us to do that. This year we've done the same thing with all the flights of Paul's P-51 with the Sato 56. I just hope that's going to help people enjoy the hobby more and get to see a part of it that maybe, you know, some of the Walker fly-offs and things. We've been competing with Paul for a lot of years and we've enjoyed every one of them. There isn't one I wouldn't want to live over again. gentlemen. We hope to see you on the next tape. Got some real interesting things coming up, and we have to start answering that phone.